Good evening and welcome to the Council meeting. I am Councillor Preeti Hud, Mayor. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the Council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72-second silence now. Would everyone please stand? Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. Does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary or any other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? Okay. This here? Thank you. I shall now ask the Chief Executive to report apologies for absences or lateness for this meeting.
I've received apologies from Councillors Benton, Issay, Marshall, Rendell and Thaxter. Sorry, apologies. I've also received apologies for lateness from Councillors Bakhtiar and Councillor Hargreaves.
Madam Mayor, we have a slight apology for lateness for 5 minutes for our leader, Councillor Ali.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, apologies from Councillor Knight on our side as well.
Thank you. Item 5 is public speaking, which has been allocated entirely to the borough's youth, all of whom I welcome to the Council. I will invite those who have registered in advance to speak to address the Council in turn for no more than 5 minutes, please. A member of the leadership team and the member of the principal minority party will then be able to respond for up to 5 minutes each. We have 8 people who have requested to speak. Therefore, I invite everyone to be as brief as possible. I will ask any speaker who reaches their 5 minutes to bring their address promptly to a close so as to ensure that all speakers have a fair and equal opportunity to be heard and to receive responses from councillors. I would now like to invite Salwa Ahmed to ask a question.
Hello, my name is Salwa Ahmed and I'm the Deputy Mayor for Borough. And the question is, sport is very important to young people in this borough, especially football. However, the main facility in the borough charges between £65 and £158 for 1 hour. How are young people supposed to afford this? We ask for heavily reduced young people's rates for more local sports centres and gyms. This can lead to a reduction in antisocial behaviour and an increase in positive health and well-being, just to name a few outcomes. Please, can we start to have these conversations? Thank you.
Councillor Emma Will, would you like to provide a response, please?
Yes, thank you. And first, may I start by thanking Sawa for coming tonight and also for her question, which I think is fantastically good and appropriate question. I think we completely agree that sport is really important for young people's mental and physical well-being. And I think we do have a good offer here in the Royal Borough, and after this meeting I will provide you with a long list of all the things that we do, but I didn't want to bore you with a sort of list in my response. With specific reference to football, and it's great to see women advocating for football, Emsley Horniman's Muga is free for community use from 8 till 10, 12 till 2 and 4 till 5 through Monday to Sunday. There are also playing fields at Kensington Memorial Park and Holland Park, which are free of charge for casual use, and the Kensington Dragons Football Club offer free football at Kensington Memorial Park for children at the weekend. I have to say, I have asked, and I don't recognise the figures you quote, and I think possibly that you're talking about the Westway provision, and of course that unfortunately is independent of the council, so we aren't responsible for that. But I think you're absolutely right to highlight that it is expensive, and I would be very happy to take it up with them and colleagues on your behalf and see if they can, you know, try and make some deductions to that. Moving to sport more widely, just to say, swimming at our leisure centres costs £1 for under 16s, and under 16s also pay half price for most sports activities that we're responsible for. You can book tennis at Holland Park for free Monday to Wednesday at 9 and 10, including the school holidays, and we offer discounts on lots of other sports such as basketball and skateboarding, and as I say, I'll provide you with a list of all the things that we do think. Having said all of that, as I say, just to reiterate, we know how important sport is. We can never be complacent about that. And if you've got other ideas or areas that you know, we can discuss and look at, really happy to meet with you and to go through that. Because and thank you again for such a good question.
Councillor Simmons, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming and asking this very important point. It's something I'm aware of locally in Nottingdale, and it applies as well as to young people, also to families, to older adults, community and voluntary organisations across the borough. So thank you very much for raising it, and especially in relation to young people. It's very timely that you've asked this question, as the council have just produced a booklet of free and affordable activities in Kensington and Chelsea. This includes details about the free pay and play card Kensington Leisure Centre, which every resident is entitled to, and which gives discounts of up to 50% on swimming classes and gyms at Kensington Leisure Centre and Chelsea Sports Centre. I went onto the website, the Better website, to find more details of this and what exactly the discounts are. But as of yesterday, I found no mention of the pay and play card on the Better website. So I think this is something that we need to look into there. There is an off-peak membership and a concessionary membership for those in receipt of eligible benefits. On the subject of sports pitches in particular, I'm aware of the difficulty of accessing affordable and community rates, whether there's a lack of capacity being provided so that pitches can't be booked, or whether the cost is not realistic. I'm aware also of how important football is to our communities, to young people, but also to veterans, women's and men's community teams. And of course, as you say, how important this is not only for physical health, but also for well-being, and including Grenfell recovery. Where the cost of using these facilities is prohibitive, or where sufficient capacity is not provided, such as it is impossible to book, as is too often the case, one has to wonder who are these facilities for. This is an issue that requires the Council, Parks and Westway Trust, the Westway Sports Centre, to work together to find ways to better support our young people and all our communities, and to ensure that they're delivering the facilities that you all need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Salwa. I would now like to invite Sidra Salihu to ask a question, please.
Hello, my name is Sidra Salihu. I'm 15 years old and I'm Deputy Member of Youth Parliament. I would like to ask how do the Council plan on boosting the equality of youth services and provisions across the borough to address the North and South divide, giving all people a fair chance to achieve?
Councillor Folkes, would you like to respond?
Hello, Sidra, and hello, all Youth Council members. It's an absolute pleasure to see you here in the Council, and it's wonderful that you're being so inclusive and helpful for us when we're designing our youth services. So thank you for coming, firstly. First of all, I'd just like to say there are some excellent youth services in this borough. We're really lucky that we spend per head, we're the 5th highest in the country of the amount we spend on youth services, and as you probably know, we've got 5 youth clubs and 2 youth hubs. But I think there is a sort of perception that there probably is more in the north than in the south, so you're right to point that out to us. Although there are some things in the south, there aren't quite as many. So thank you for pointing that out. I just wanted to highlight that we're currently in the middle of doing a review of all our youth services, which I know you're being very helpful in contributing towards that review, and we'll take everything you say into account. And so hopefully we'll come back and we can point out. I think one of the issues we have is that we haven't been very good at communicating all the things that are available for young people throughout the borough. And so I think that's the first thing we can address, and making that much clearer and more youth-friendly for you to find out where all those things are. You also mentioned about giving young people a fair chance in the borough, and I think that is really, really important, as we know, that you've all got access to chances. And for that reason, we actually, in the economic development team here, have a whole dedicated group of officers who work with schools and work with careers advice, with training, employment advice, because we recognise how important that is, that young people know that all the things that are available for them, you know, whether that's further education, apprenticeships, or some of the programmes that we've actually put in place, like Quick Start, to give people internships for a short period of time. And one of the things that you might be interested in is a new Unlock programme that's starting in 2023 that's going to be delivering education and programmes to schools and colleges in partnership with local businesses. I'm sure I haven't answered all your questions, and I'd love to come and meet you all to talk about this further. But thank you for coming.
Councillor New.
Sidra, thank you for coming this evening to address the full council after a long day in school. I think to give all our youngsters a fair chance to succeed, this council needs to take the following steps. The quality of funding, I want to say funding, we know our youth clubs are funded fairly, but always things can be improved. So quality of funding to enable different services to support those children who are in need, varied services, and not assuming all services are the same. For example, we have Grenfell issue in the north, and we have in the south shortage of places for under-8s. Commissioning across the borough, encouraging more collaboration for all organizations, whether they're based in the south or north, so they can bridge the gaps. Youth organizations should be recognized. When I was youth worker years back, we used to have annual conference where we recognize the quality and the efforts of the youth service in the borough. Encourage healthy competition to entice more innovation, encourage skill set, make decisions in long term rather than short term, meaning commissioning number of years and hopefully moving to grant-based opposed to commissioning, similar to the other charities, namely John Lyons Charity, who does help a lot of charities in this borough. I just want to touch on, I know I've run out of time in the consultation. 4 years ago, we done a consultation which we reached 10,000 youngsters in the borough. This year, I think up to now, in my numbers, it's 100, because mainly it was done the time of the exams, GCSE.
Councillor New, I would really appreciate if you could
Thank you.
wrap it up quickly, please. Thank you. Thank you, Sidra. I would now like to invite Beatrice Kwaki Ofori to ask a question.
I'm Beatrice Kwaki Ofori and I'm Council Cabinet Member for Communities and Services. The Council plan outlines that there will be more support for schools to deliver excellent education and high-level special needs provision. We would like to know what is being planned to improve the school working environment. For example, we have a high-level rate of permanent exclusion and low-quality rate of teaching culture.
Councillor Foakes.
Beatrice, thank you so much for coming here today. And again, you have a very pertinent question, a really important challenge that you're giving to us, because you're absolutely right, our schools need to be the best in the country. And luckily at the moment they are the best in the country, so it's a good starting point, as you know, that we've all our schools are good and outstanding except for 2, which one of them is an academy. So what are we doing to improve the school working environment? I couldn't quite unpack what that meant, and so I'd be really happy to come and meet with you at another point to know what you're getting to. But just to give you some headlines or maybe some reassurance about what's going on with our schools, it's that we've just had the results of our Key Stage 2 outcomes. In the Key Stage 2 outcomes, the national average is 59%. And the London average is 64%. But here in Kensington and Chelsea, our average is 72.4%, the highest in the country. So that does give you an indication that our schools really are excellent and are a wonderful place for our young children to thrive in. And of our Kensington and Chelsea early years registered providers, 100% of them are all good or outstanding. So we will always support our schools. We're very aware of the high level of special needs of some of the children in our schools, and we pay particular attention to how we can support them in every way that we can, with special officers looking at their needs. You also mentioned the high rate of permanent exclusion. I don't know quite where you got that figure from. We actually are lower than national average on that. It's not a huge number of people, but the ones that are, obviously we put in all the support that we can to try and help get them back into work or education and other things. But there's so much to unpack. Please come and see me so I can talk to you more about on all these really important issues. Thank you.
Councillor Mona Ahmed.
Hi, Beatrice. Thanks very much for this question. I think it's a really, really important one, the question of school exclusions in particular. I think, like Serda before you mentioned, there are huge divides in our borough. In fact, we've attracted the title of the most unequal borough in the country again and again, and it's therefore, it's logical, therefore, that we would have among the highest rates of exclusions, which we do. The by-borough strategy that was published last year that I was looking at speaks about how our average for school exclusions is significantly higher than the rest of the country and significantly higher than inner city London schools. It's right here. I can share it with you. And actually, this was something that the Labour group did put forward a motion this time last year about kind of stepping up and making more robust our exclusion reduction work and set targets for minimising this. But it was voted against. And the by-borough school exclusion strategy it notes that it does need to go a lot further in setting more ambitious targets for reducing exclusion. So while there's a lot that this borough does well, obviously all the schools, as we've heard, are either good or outstanding, this is actually an area that needs an awful lot of thinking about and early intervention, including mental health support for people who are at risk of exclusions. So we do need to push more for schools to have the resources that they need for early identification of children who are the most at risk of exclusion, and providing them with proper packages of support in time. And as I said, especially with mental health input, you're 10 times more likely to have a mental health disorder if you've got, you know, if you've been excluded. And actually, the majority of the money that is being invested in this area around school exclusions, most of it is actually being invested into the schools for excluded children after they've been excluded. So the full-time education that's, again, I can share this information with you. I can share this information with you. I have it right here. And actually only 20% is being invested in early intervention work. Okay.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you, Beatrice. I would now like to invite Akira Belfont-George to ask a question.
Hello, good evening. My name is Akira Belfont-George. I'm 13 years old, and since January I have been a member of the Youth Council. As the Youth Council, we have dedicated £20,000 towards supporting young people and children with the cost of living crisis. You would like to know what new initiatives or support will the Council provide for wider families?
Sorry, I'll start. Thank you, first of all, for your question. And this is a moment every year that I think Sina and I celebrate because we're no longer the youngest speakers in the chamber on a full council night, so that's nice. There is lots of council investment towards the cost of living that's happened, so I'll run through a little bit of it quickly. For example, the £100 rebate that we gave to households in bands A to D, the £22 million that we give to the voluntary sector, and also the £8 million cost of living fund. It's already been noted that we give the 5th most of any place in the UK towards youth services. But I think you're right. Now is a moment to try to be more radical, to go further. I think there are examples of areas that we could look at in the future, for example, expanding the amounts of people that get free school meals, scholarships. We've talked about sports at Cremorne Wharf many times, and football in particular. I think football pitches and basketball pitches are something that we've spoken about at youth council meetings when I've been there, and with AJ in particular. Likewise, Boris bikes and things like that. I think the important thing to say, though, is that I'm very happy to discuss offline. If you have particular ideas that you'd like us to consider, why don't we take that away? And I'm always happy to come to youth council meetings to understand what your needs are.
Councillor Qasim Ali, if you'd like to respond, please.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. I think that time will be deducted since the mic was not working. Just want to double check with you guys. You kept saying about the mic all the time. But thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Akira and the rest of the team, thank you very much for coming. And if I may just say, since someone just mentioned, or the lead member mentioned, the young age, I think I was once under 18. I'm assuming all of you are under 18. And I didn't even know someone just speaking behind me, sorry about that. I didn't even know where the Kensington and Chelsea Council was. But now you're under 18 and now you're here, you're asking these questions. That gives me really a good energy that you will one day not only asking questions there, but answering questions on this side of the borough, on this side of the chamber. And you will be wonderful councillors. So I look forward to seeing you working for the communities. And please take this forward message. The question you've asked, Akira, is really relevant to question. And I'm sure you will understand it's not just about the youth. The wider family is the number one. But the cost of living crisis that we're going through, the high energy bills and other sides of the cost of living crisis, it's important the family is the council to support the wider family. And one of them is building social and affordable homes so that at least the youth can feel they have homes, they can call their rooms, and they can do their homework, they can celebrate with their friends, and this is what the Labour is trying to push and make sure that we have affordable homes for the rest of the family. In terms of education, we have put forward a plan, and we keep saying this a long time. A Grenfell scholarship is most necessary for this borough, especially the north of the borough, but the wider borough. Grenfell scholarship, so that the youngsters can benefit. They will become the world-leading experts of every field. And I hope you will succeed. And I hope that one day we'll see you here. Many thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Kira. I'm going to read out the following question on behalf of Mohsin Ghanin. A lot of people in the area rely on bus services to get around London, to get to other parts of the city. For example, the 52 takes us to Victoria Station, which is great. However, some of the other frequent services have changed their route, becoming very limited. For example, the 23 used to go to Liverpool Street Station, Aldwych, and now only goes in a circle to Hammersmith, while the number 7 stops on Oxford Street, where it used to go to the British Museum. Can anything be done to address the limitations caused by these changes? Councillor Jem Kamali, would you please like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mohsin. I hope you're watching on from at home. It's a really good question, because the buses are generally the unsung hero of London. They get us around night and day, making sure that people get home safe, get to work bright and early, and sort of they're a landmark and an icon of London internationally. Indeed, the Labour leader to my right was famous for being a bus driver. But I'm sure will join me in agreeing that what Sadiq Khan has done to the bus network in London and Kensington and Chelsea especially has been egregious. We have campaigned incessantly. In fact, I'm sure your home has had our letters come through the door asking you to join us in our campaign against the cuts. I'm happy to say we were able to secure a number of those cuts, but the fight does still go on. We have especially the hospital buses of the 11 and the 211 that we're continuing to campaign for. We want to make sure that people are able to get across London and across Kensington and Chelsea safely at all hours, especially at night when there are other options that are more limited. We find it astounding that Sadiq Khan is willing to make these cuts to the services that our residents benefit from. But fortunately, we do have a way out of this. We have a new Conservative candidate for the Mayor of London. And we can all get on the bus and back Susan Hall at the upcoming election next May. And I hope Mohsin will join us there at the hustings. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lowry.
Firstly, thank you to Mohsin for asking his question. Unlike the meaningless platitudes about Sadiq Khan, which my opposition always raises over and over again, I will give you some facts because you need the facts. Local government, both the council and the GLA, only exist on a mandate from national government. So the GLA and the council, our council, exist under the funding constraints and criteria set by national government because we have to have a balanced budget. And what the fact is that the government, central government, run by Rishi Sunak and his incompetent predecessors, have unfortunately set us back by producing an immense amount of budget cuts to London's funding. London has been affected substantially by the pandemic, which meant that TfL's budget already was under constraints. But due to the government's funding cuts, Sadiq Khan was forced to consult and, using his skills at balanced budgets, found 25 million last year to save the majority of the routes that were put up for consultation for abolishment. Yeah. So Sadiq Khan actually saved the majority of the routes that were consulted. Just be quiet for 1 second.
Very well done.
So the fact is it's the government's fault, not Sadiq Khan's. And also what the council can do, which you didn't answer, is negotiate. Westminster City Council, a Labour-run council, saved 6 routes through its acumen and political skills and negotiation. Yes. This council has saved not a single one because the majority of you can't be taken seriously by the mayor. Another part of your question is about transport. This council has also failed to ignore cycle lanes. Ooh. It's not just about buses, it's also about cycle lanes. We're the only council in inner London without an east to west cycle lane, and hundreds of thousands of pounds of your families' and friends' taxpayers' money was wasted when this council removed the cycle lane, perfectly adequate from Kensington High Street. So the fact is that, unfortunately, the Tories cannot understand the finances of London because they've decimated our budgets through substantial funding cuts from central government, which are not the fault of Sadiq Khan. They're the fault, and unfortunately, Susan Hall, who is a massive fan of Donald Trump, is not going to be elected next year.
Councillor
But I wish her the
Lowry,
best of
thank
luck.
you, thank you. Thank you on behalf of Mohsen. I would now like to invite Zainab Tunk to answer a question.
Hello, my name is Zainab, I'm 15 years old and I'm a member of the Youth Council. And my question is, what events or ideas do councillors and senior leadership members have planned to build face-to-face relationships with the communities they represent? Thank you.
Councillor Soft McVeigh, please.
Thank you very much for that question. And thank you for coming here tonight. So I went to your youth council 2 weeks ago, and I think you were slightly better behaved than we all have been tonight. So I could invite everybody to come to their youth council meetings. I believe it's Hashim, it's every Monday night. And thank you to fantastic officer Hashim over here who organises it all. And at the Youth Council meeting I went to, you had a really wide-ranging discussion on mental health issues, and it was really incredible, the debate in the room. So thank you very much. I took away a lot from that. And thank you for your question, very good question. As we're all the councillors here, we're all ward councillors, so we're all elected to represent our residents. And it's absolutely the core of what we should all be doing, going out there into our wards, speaking with residents, speaking with businesses, speaking with schools. Today I went down to a wonderful school, Marlborough School, in Chelsea, and looked at the beautiful mosaic there, all done by the children. And then in my kind of community leadership role, I was at a meeting in North Kensington last night, speaking about the future of the Curve Legacy Fund. So I think we do all get out and about as individuals, but I think probably unpicking your question a bit, it's like, what do we do that's planned and that people can come to? And I know that your youth council input has been absolutely essential in a lot of our consultations. And thank you for coming to one of our North Kent Citizens panel events we did. Thank you very much for coming. It was fabulous. And your input was great. And in the autumn, we have a few more kind of local ward-based community conversations that are happening. And so I'll make sure that you know when they are and can feed into that, which will be excellent. Because having the youth voice in all of our engagement, our community engagements, our consultations is absolutely essential. You are the future. We need to know what you think, how you want this borough to be. You know, as Councillor Ali said, you know, you hopefully will be in this chamber at some point as well. So thank you very much. And we're also, with that in mind, about how we hear from you, we're doing a new youth participation strategy to find out, you know, what, where, when, and how. And just from last week, it's obviously mainly on TikTok. And I think we're still using Twitter. So that's something we're going to be looking at.
Councillor McWay, thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much, anyway. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming and asking your question. I'd just like to apologise that you've all had to witness the unedifying display of rudeness from grown adults. So hopefully we won't see any more of that. In their roles as lead members, the leadership team are in fact representing the council, not only the residents of their ward. They don't in fact have any mandate from residents of other wards, and they can't be held democratically accountable by residents not in their ward. They're making decisions, though, which affect residents all across the borough and which can have huge impacts on residents' lives and futures, as we've seen especially in the north. It's therefore vital that the leadership team is not only visible and finds ways to make itself accountable, but also that lead members have a clear and accurate understanding of the communities they serve and of their needs and priorities. This is why the lead members really do need to hear firsthand from residents and communities across the borough, such as the Youth Council, not just their preferred partners and friends, and to listen and act upon what they hear. The residents really are your best asset, leadership, for being the best council. So I hope that the leadership team do understand the importance of building face-to-face relationships with communities across the borough, And I do look forward to hearing more details of their plans in that regard, as I'm sure do you. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you, Zainab. I would now like to invite AJ Tumlos to ask a question.
Hi, my name is AJ Tumlos. I'm the youth mayor for the borough, and I'm 13, turning 14 tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
My question today is, what initiatives are the council taking to ensure young people in the borough have access to services and resources they need? Can you please provide us with a timeline of these initiatives?
Councillor Catherine Folkes.
Hello, AJ, and again, congratulations on being elected Youth Mayor. I know you're doing a fantastic job with your whole committee you've got here. That is a great question. And first of all, as Councillor McVeigh has just stressed, the number one and most important thing is actually that we listen to the young people in the borough, and that it is their voice and their opinions that actually form all the strategies that we produce. So I'm sure you've all seen, and I keep bringing this out because I think it's a wonderful document, our Children and Young People's Plan, which was completely developed on the back of what our young people told us they wanted to see in the borough. So obviously I won't go through all our priorities and what actions we're taking in here, but I'm sure you've all seen this because it's such a comprehensive and excellent document. But just to address one of the things about the youth review that I mentioned earlier, which I know you're very much part of, you asked for a time scale on that. So we've done the consultation, and there's been very broad consultation with schools, with community groups. I know Councillor McVeigh's run some, and we're at the moment assimilating all that information together, which will come back in September to us, so that we can have an idea in that where we should best distribute. We spend about £1.5 million on youth services that isn't statutory money. So as I said before, it's about the 5th highest in the country on our youth services. I think that's really important for everyone to note how important we think our young people are. So that will come back. We'll then decide, if we need to adjust them, if we need more in the south, are we reaching the right people? And we will then bounce that back against all of you to see if you agree with some of the conclusions we come up with. And then, as Sof has just mentioned, that will lead into the youth participation strategy, which is more about how you can participate in those activities and have your voice heard. But I still come back to the thing that I think is really important that we've both mentioned, is actually how we communicate with young people. And one of the first things we got back from the youth review was, you're never going to look at our website, you're never going to look on our Instagram, and you'll only look at TikTok. So we're getting better at doing that.
Councillor Folkes, thank you. Councillor Kassim-Ali, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I first of all wish you a happy birthday in advance for tomorrow, since we may not meet, so happy birthday to you in advance. AJ Tumlos, I think you've asked a very important question in terms of understanding the timeline. What is the council doing, and can you put a timeline to it? Everyone can say good words here and there and produce very glossy magazines or brochure or papers or anything that the council wants to. And perhaps that's why you've been invited today, who knows? But we're glad that you're here. But the point is, the Labour group, under my leadership, is willing to work with all the residents and youth. As I once said before, someone asked me at the back here, when was that? I was once under 18, and I don't want to go back to that. But we can work together. And hopefully in 5 years' time, when you have the chance to vote, or 4 years' time from tomorrow, when you have a chance to vote, you can vote for the right team that can deliver for not just for the youth, but for mom and dad, for parents, for the all communities, and can make you feel proud. So once again, timeline is important. If the leadership does not work on the timeline, we, the Labour group, will work with you on this front. And many thanks once again for coming, for all of you, and looking forward to seeing you many more years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, AJ, and a happy birthday again. I would now like to invite Aya Mahmood to ask a question, please.
Hi guys, my name is Ayo. I am the youth MP for this borough, and I have been in the Youth Council and Youth Parliament for around a year and 6 months. So my question to you guys is, how are councillors working towards making housing accessible to young adults who want to continue living in the borough, so that young people in the borough are truly the future of Kensington and Chelsea?
Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith, please.
Thank you, and that is just a massive question. I mean, a sad fact, I looked at, because I knew you were coming today, and the average age now of somebody leaving home has gone up to 28. I mean, the highest in Europe is actually in Turkey, and I'm sure Councillor Kamali can maybe explain why, and the youngest is actually Norway, which is when I left, which was 19. But it's a massive problem in this borough because housing is so expensive and people are having to move further and further up London. I know because I've got 2 boys that have had to do that themselves. You know, but the sad fact about when are you likely to get a home here is that we have some major crises. We've got 3,000 people on our waiting list waiting for a home, and every week 27 people turn up at the town hall wishing to be declared as homeless, and we accept 17, but that's still a massive pressure. And so the question is, what are we going to do about it? Well, the solutions are, first of all, under occupation. We've got a lot of homes that are council homes which are under-occupied, encouraging people to move into smaller homes, but that's not going to help you because it's going to help people with larger families who've been waiting a long time. It's not going to be younger people because that will be single homes or single one-bedrooms or singles, so that's not going to help. So we've got empty homes. We've got loads in the borough. There's no legislation. I know I've been lobbying the government about empty dwelling orders, but there's no legislation that's viable to get back the empty homes that we see. We're building 300 social homes out of the 600, and I was delighted to go to the Kelso Cochrane House opening last month. That's 38 homes, desperate. The biggest thing that we've got available to us is actually from developers. And we've got some very large schemes coming up in this borough that give us an opportunity of getting a lot of homes. And demanding 35% of those homes as being affordable, 70% of which will be social, is absolutely key. A very large site, we've got Kensal site up in the north of the borough. There is a possibility there to provide 2,500 homes. And if at 35%, that would give us a total of 875 homes. That's 40% of our people that are in TA Welsh. I know it's unpopular. You know, this will be a total. I know it's very unpopular. I know it's very unpopular with the opposition group, and I'm absolutely delighted that the leader of the Labour group has said how important it is for them to find new homes. And I'll be looking to them and be interested to hear what was happening. So thank you very much. I just want to end up by saying thank you again for coming today. It's been brilliant.
Thank you, Aya.
Thank you. And thank you also for coming to ask this really important question. I'm not going to repeat some of the information that Councillor Taylor-Smith has described to you about the shortage of housing in the borough in terms of social housing, but also in terms of affordable private rented. So as well as social housing, there's also intermediate rents. And there are local as well as national requirements on how social housing is allocated. With intermediate rented housing, the council is prioritising key workers with its key worker and intermediate housing policy approved by the leadership in spring last year. I think this needs to be looked at again so that the needs of our young people are not overlooked. There's also the question of rents. We've all seen in the news how landlords are increasing rents just because they can. This is a national issue, but the impact on young people in our borough is unacceptable. And I suggest the leadership need to look at ways to mitigate this in the short term and to continue to work with central government to deliver meaningful solutions in our borough to support our young people especially. You're important and we really want you to be able to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Aya. Thank you all for coming. Do members have any petitions to present? Item 7, statement by the leader and response by the leader of the minority party. I now invite leader of the council to address the meeting for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And may I say, what a fantastic start you've made in your new term of office. Out and about in our communities and resplendent in your gold chain today, jet washing our streets. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tonight, I'd also like to thank officers for their efforts in stopping a well-known insulation company involved in the Grenfell inquiry, sneaking past our rules and procurement policy. Thanks to our spot checks, diligence, and steadfast commitment to promises made to our communities, we intercepted a contractor installing Kingspan materials in one of our major refurbishments projects. Madam Mayor, Kim and colleagues have put an enormous amount of effort to earn trust from our communities. We care about the safety of our residents, we care about the rules and regulations we set, and we care about enforcing them. This is a reminder to us, though, we should never relax, never rest on our laurels, and never assume. I know that Kim's in discussions with our contractors, and I know we all expect better, and especially in this borough. Safer is a key theme in our council plan, launched just a few months ago, and it extends into all the work we do as an organisation and all the things we want to see for our residents. And tonight I want to focus on this theme of safer, and in particular, tackling crime and antisocial behaviour. Thanks to the efforts of this council, and in particular to Emma in her community safety brief, we now have plans in place to seek a Section 80 partial closure order in Earls Court. And this is rare. It means using legislation to crack down on criminality in a specific area for 3 to 6 months, and has only been used a handful of times in London. It means quicker action, quicker arrests with repeat offenders banned from the area. Earls Court is a vibrant and exciting place of our borough, part of our borough, and earlier this week I met our 3 ward councillors on site to see for myself the problems caused by low-level crime, antisocial behaviour, drugs and alcohol. And Madam Mayor, by working with the police, we think we can bring real change to the area. We have already conducted pilot work which helped us map out the issues and understand them, and give us a call to action, which the police have now heard. We are asking residents and business leaders now to help us gather at least 50 statements about crime and antisocial behaviour as evidence for a submission to the courts, and put this alongside our work, our £1 million ward by ward grime busting blitz, and our streets will be cleaner and safer, and our borough will be better for it. If we can work together with the police and demonstrate leadership, residents will see a real difference, and not just in Earls Court, Madam Mayor. Our blitzes take us all over the borough, across the north, central and south, and I know that councillors on both sides of the chamber will be pleased for the investment that we're making, responding to the priorities of our residents who live here. Madam Mayor, the Met Commissioner wrote to me just a few days ago to outline a new approach to policing. And of course, it's too late for the current mayor of the city. Sadiq's battle against crime has already been lost. But reading the words of Sir Mark Rowley is encouraging. On the vital work councils do, he says, the Met should commit to building genuine partnerships with local authorities and local communities. There needs to be a cultural shift to understand and value the role of local authorities and local authority expertise and understanding of their communities. So it's clear that Louise Casey, so often a champion for the work of councils, has left a lasting impression with her report, and partnerships with local authorities could well benefit. So the round of community meetings is now underway, and I encourage residents to bookmark August the 17th for a public meeting which will be publicised by the police shortly. And finally, Madam Mayor, on the same subject, we've also submitted a letter on the future of Notting Hill Police Station, restating our belief that it should be kept in public use or ownership. And I'm interested to see how the Met genuinely shifts its approach to its estates, and if we can see the same effort to save a police station in this borough as there now is in Hillingdon. In our borough, visibility is important, police presence is paramount. So greener, safer, fairer, that is the vision we set out for the borough, and I hope residents can already see the progress that we're making. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kasim Ali, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier this month, I attended my first local government association conference as the leader of the Labour opposition. The conference attendees were all from all over the country. It was an opportunity to meet with many council and opposition leaders to exchange views of how different councillors are delivering for different communities. The leader of the council, the deputy leader, and the chief executive were also in attendance of that conference. I hope they have enjoyed as much as I did, because this was a conference for local governments where the Labour Party was the largest party in local government, which I am proud to be part of. The current Secretary of State of Levelling Up was one of the keynote speakers. Although I do not remember what he said, I remember very well that one of the other keynote speakers were giving the shadow secretary and hopefully the upcoming Secretary of State for Communities, Housing and the Local Government, the Right Honourable Lisa Nandi, has given a speech which was excellent and building about social housing for the borough, which desperately need, as you've heard, for the youth members here. And that's her priority for the next government. Madam Mayor, the Conservative leadership of this council has accused in the past that the Labour group does not have a vision. Well, I disagreed before, and I'm disagreeing at their comments as we speak. However, I want to let them know now that with my newly talented Labour group leadership, we have a vision for the council and for the borough for our residents across the borough. Furthermore, I would like to inform everyone Kensington and Chelsea Labour Group has a vision of the council for residents which is in line with the London Labour Mayor's vision for building fairer, greener and safer London for everyone. And when it comes to Kensington and Chelsea, reducing inequality and prosperity for all our residents is the vision that we as the Labour Group is championing for. The bedrock for our vision is based on the University College London, UCL, Institute for Global Prosperity, Universal Basic Services, which some of them know as a UPS research paper, which I recommend the opposite party should read should include it as part of their summer reading list, because it's a very important research paper. Here is the Labour Group prosperity list that will be delivered for community services that's a fit for Borough for 21st century. Number one, housing. Having a roof over your head is the number one and the beginning of prosperity. A good local education is the pathway to prosperity. A good local economy, a food security, healthcare, information technology and connectivity, and good transport links. And finally, cleaner, greener, and a safer borough, as London Mayor believes is what Kensington and Chelsea requires. Madam Mayor, I have not been given to give a detailed response for all the points that I have mentioned above as the Labour Group points for prosperity for Kensington and Chelsea. However, I will start with housing, which is the number one as it stands for as it is now. Housing itself needs more time, because if we have to deal with housing, we deal with private renters, council tenants, as well as leaseholders. If I say a few words about the leaseholders first to begin with, and the major works failure, Madam Mayor, you may recall back in May this year, I requested a meeting with the Deputy Leader of the Council and the Lead Member for Housing and Social Investment to meet with residents from Delgado and to talk about the TMO's major work failures. I'm pleased to inform the Council, Madam Mayor, that the meeting has taken place yesterday, and I'm pleased to inform that the lead member has agreed to meet with my residents in Delgado Ward, and the meeting was really a good outcome. And as well as I wish to thank the Deputy Mayor Deputy Leader for taking the time to meet with my residents, as well as I wish to extend my thanks to the Director of Housing Management, Doug Goldring. Delgado residents wanted to acknowledge the Council, to acknowledge the TMO's major failures that has been carried out by what they called a rogue contractors, and the Deputy Leader has acknowledged yesterday's meeting. And we are understanding that we have been dealing with the Delgado residents' complaint. Delgado residents also want, and that's across the borough indeed, wants the bill that has been written to be written off, and moving forward, leaseholders wants to be given an opportunity to opt out major works in the future if such a failure or something similar is supposed to happen. I'm also pleased to inform you once again, Madam Mayor, that the voices of Delgado Ward and the North Kensington residents were heard. The lead member and the senior officers will rethink about the bill, as well as when they will consult with their lawyers, as well as if there were bills to be paid. And finally, as of yesterday, Delgado residents were informed who were at the meeting that the bill will be put on hold and the council will not be seeking until it's been recalculated and lawyers were consulted. Furthermore, leaseholders will have now opportunity to opt out if they want to opt out from the major works in the agreement, but they have to pay small fees for their leasehold agreements, which I have to know for the council leaders, Deputy Council has mentioned. In conclusion, Madam Mayor,
Councillor
our actions, I'll finish, this is the last point, thank you. In conclusion, Madam Mayor, as I wish to know everyone, to inform everyone, including the councillors sitting here and the residents in RBKC, that our action is, as the Labour group in Kensington and Chelsea, is delivering for residents in opposition. Can you imagine what excellent work we can provide in power? Thank you very much. Thank you.
In accordance with standing orders, I rule that the order of business shall as printed in the agenda. Item 9. I now invite Councillor Campbell to propose the reception of the report, which is pages numbered 73 to 146 of the additional papers pack, and Councillor Taylor-Smith to second.
I'd like to propose, Madam Mayor.
And I'm happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Campbell to speak for up to 5 minutes.
No, thank you.
There is only one recommendation for Council to consider. Does any member wish to speak on the medium-term finance strategy? Councillor James Husband.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a few brief remarks. First of all, I very much support the plan that's put forward. It's extremely difficult to try and look 4 years ahead at the moment in relation to our finances, and I think we have to be sympathetic to officers who have to draw up a strategy of this type. I do think, though, that one or two things in the next year or so are extremely obvious. I think I would suggest the primary one is that there won't suddenly be a lot of money available for local government. If circumstances next year meant there was a dollop of money somewhere, personally, I think there'd be an enormous fight as to who would grab it. Personally, I think Mick Lynch will elbow the junior doctors out of the way without any difficulty at all, but there'll be no money for us, basically. In terms of the strategy itself, I think there's a summary in Appendix 1 of the Council plan, and I think it's slightly disappointing that the officers who drafted this, in terms of the Afera borough, they made no reference to achieving value for money, of keeping council tax and charges as low as possible. because I think sometimes there is a kind of forgotten middle among residents in the borough. We're all familiar with sort of fabulous kind of journalistic stories about incredibly rich people, and obviously many people have, enjoy benefits and are able to live in Kensington, Chelsea. But there are a lot of people who actually, their incomes may be quite modest, and I would suggest the level of something like the council tax does actually matter to them. I'd like to make a couple of specific comments. The triennial valuation of the pension scheme was done last year. And one thing that is noticeable is that between March 19 and March 22, the number of employees on the payroll actually went up from 3,200 to over 3,700. Now, these are members of our pension scheme, so one assumes they are actually sort of core cost of the council. They're not kind of contractors who've somehow been counted by accident. And I think that across the council, I think it might be useful if Councillor Thalasitis and Mr. Curtis, if there was a piece of work to really look at the workforce, because this is the largest cost that we have as a local authority. Clearly, Madam Mayor, there are an enormous number of officers who do a very good job, and I think governance and the mayoralty is probably a very good example of people who work hard, do a good job, and the amount of money that's spent in these areas is frankly probably rather modest. But I think that may not be the case everywhere. So I think it's well worth our while trying to address some of these issues. I'll just give one or two quick examples, and I think, colleagues, you'll understand I'm necessarily slightly vague about some of these things, but one of our colleagues referred a few months back, just chatting, and an area of council activity where, frankly, there was a cost superstructure for that particular area, and something had to be done about it in order to reduce cost without any impact on the service. And I think that kind of thing, which in some ways it's obviously quite difficult. It's one of those things, it's dead easy to say, but it's difficult to do. I accept that. But there are various other things. And the other example I would give is a more local one. An officer, and again, I've got to be very careful what I say, an officer intervened in a situation where somebody complained to me. And frankly, I thought what had been done really was pointless. It was pointless activity by the council. And I'm looking across down and to my right when I say this. And a manager responded to me, and their response essentially was say the officer was quite right. We were entitled to do it. And I thought, well, yes, okay, still pointless though. Now, I must move on. I do welcome the robust approach that is outlined actually in motion 3 this evening, which I very much support. And, Madam Mayor, I would like to ask the leadership, particularly Councillor Thalasitis and, as I say, Mr. Curtis, I'd like them perhaps to consider a few of the comments that I've made this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. In the medium-term finance strategy, recommendation 2.1 on page 73, agreed? I declare the strategy agreed. Is the Treasury Management Outturn 2022 to 2023 recommendation 2.1 on page 73 of the additional papers pack noted? Item 10. I now invite Councillor Campbell to propose the reception of the Administration Committee report to adopt a new policy on disclosure and barring services checks for councillors and refresh terms of reference for the North West London Joint Health and Overview Committee, pages 19 to 46 of the agenda pack, and Councillor Thalasitis to second.
I'd like to propose.
And I'd like to second.
I now invite Councillor Campbell to speak.
Madam Mayor, I think it's pretty straightforward, so I don't think there's anything I'd like to add.
Okay, thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? Does Councillor Campbell wish to sum up?
No, Madam Mayor.
Does Council agree with the recommendations in paragraph 2.1 on page 19 of the agenda pack? The recommendations are approved. Item 11, I now invite Councillor Wheel to propose the reception of the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report 2022 to 2023, and Councillor Pascal to second pages 47 to 66 of the agenda pack. Councillor Pascal.
Thank you, second, Madam Mayor. Sorry about the microphone.
I now invite Councillor Wheel to speak to the report.
Because I was told I was going to be sorted out on this one, but
Next to you.
I'm going to. Right, I'm going to use this one. So I wanted just to briefly look back over the last year in scrutiny at some of the things, the most important things that we did, particularly our scrutiny of Grenfell. We had 3 major strategic reports last year, which added greatly, I feel, to the work that we've been doing in the last year towards Grenfell, and I think there was a good deal of constructive challenge to the strategies and some really valuable input from all the committee into the direction of travel. This year, I think we've made a particular point of trying to involve residents, and I particularly want to mention the Antisocial Behaviour Conference and to thank Greg, Darbo and Sydney for their incredible organisation of that. It mustn't be underestimated, the amount of work that goes into to organising that. And of course, all the members of the public and the police who attended that. It was well attended, and I think along with many things that we do in OSC, I think we pick up what really matters to residents because it engages their attention, and antisocial behaviour is clearly one of them, and one to which the leadership team have responded in various initiatives. I think this year will be notable for a new initiative really in looking more or asking for more metrics at Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I think as backbenchers, we need figures in order to be able to scrutinise what the executive are doing. And I've been, I think it's been a slightly curate's egg in the figures that we've been offered. Some departments have been really marvellous at willingly producing the figures for us to look at their underbelly. Some have needed a little bit more encouragement, and it's a work in progress. But I think that the idea of regularly looking at performance is bedding down into our scrutiny function, and I think that's as it should be. And already it has allowed us to identify some issues that we need to look into further, and that's as it should be. So next year, I hope you will see from the report our ambitions include doing many more visits. I think it's really important, and I know the committee's members share that with me, to make the effort to go out and visit organisations, be they the care homes that we run, our schools, places where people meet, places that are important to our community. It's all very well reading about them in papers, but actually going there and meeting our residents who use those facilities makes an enormous difference to the way we think. We're setting up, each committee this year will, unlike last year, have a working group. And this gives us, as members, a real chance to get our teeth into some issues and to really get some depth of knowledge and properly examine issues. We'll also have examining the proposals around the Gordon Hospital as a major element of our work, a major and very important element of our work next year, as will Grenfell be again, and a continued emphasis on figures. We've already had some strong input into the corporate dashboard, which is different from the figures that we see, but that's also a very important aspect of what we've done this year and want to carry on doing next year in order to make sure that the metrics to hold ourselves to account for our activity against the corporate plan are firmly in place. So finally, I just want to proffer my thanks really to our retiring chairman Kasim, our new replacement chairman Claire, but also to all our current chairmen, some of whom have come to this very new onto the council and thrust into positions which require a great deal of work, which they have carried out to get themselves up to speed with some very complicated issues. And I'm really grateful to all those chairmen who have made that effort. I'm very grateful to all the members of the committee who diligently read their papers and come to the committees with some really insightful and probing questions. And sometimes, as I'm embarrassed to say, at my last meeting, there was more than 700 pages for people to digest. And I have to say they rose magnificently to the occasion, and I'm promising now that I won't do it to them again. Also to the leadership team, to thank them for their willingness and frankness to coming to our committees and occasionally being treated a bit dustily, I suspect they may feel, but it's all done in the spirit of inquiry on behalf of our residents, and they have put up with our inquiries most nobly and willingly, actually, and given up an awful lot of time as well to working groups, for which I'm grateful. And finally, to our officers, who have been very stretched this year because of some vacancies, but who have risen amazingly to the occasion. And although I know they were very stretched, we haven't felt any interruption in support for the work that we do. So my huge thanks go to them. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you. I would like to thank Councillor Wheel and to all the scrutiny councillors for their very warm welcome to me in my new capacity as Chair of the Housing and Communities Select Committee. I'd like to thank the outgoing Chair, Councillor Ali, for his excellent work over the last few years. And I'd also like to give praise to the very excellent scrutiny and governance officers who work so hard and so diligently, providing such outstanding support to this important statutory function. And finally, to the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny for their comprehensive and first-rate training sessions. If anyone has missed these, I highly recommend them. I look forward to this year's work programme and to helping to deliver robust and effective scrutiny on housing and communities and on overview and scrutiny. Finally, I would just like to note that it remains a stain on this council's reputation that the leadership voted to abolish the Grenfell Recovery Scrutiny Committee in 2019 at the start of the Grenfell Recovery Programme, heedless of the stated wishes of bereaved and survivors, heedless of residents of the local community. As a result, the scrutiny of Grenfell Recovery has been fragmented across committees and made 1,000 times more difficult, as the Audit and Transparency Committee is now aware. This could and should have been foreseen. How this decision was permitted, given the informal intervention and the statutory scrutiny function, we can only surmise. But in closing, I would like to welcome this report and thank everybody once again.
Does any other member wish to speak? Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I predominantly just want to take the opportunity to thank firstly the members of the committee, my Deputy Chair, Councillor Whedon-Sands, but all members from both parties. I think we've worked together incredibly well over the last municipal year to scrutinise a number of important areas, and when it comes to the environment, we're quite an innovative and creative council, so there's been an awful lot to scrutinise. I'm sure you've read the papers, so I won't repeat everything, but certainly British summertime licensing, and the new local plan, the Centre for London report. I just want to mention a couple of things in particular. One is an area which might have escaped people's notice, which is public conveniences. We had a paper in front of us around closing a couple of public conveniences, and there were very good value for money reasons to do so. But we gave a recommendation to the leadership around finding other opportunities to provide facilities for residents, and particularly we had representations from elderly residents about how important it is. We managed to find a solution whereby businesses who were applying for pavement licenses as part of the summertime licensing, so tying in another part of our area that we scrutinised, those licenses tied in with providing a public convenience to members of the public, even people who weren't patrons, so thereby extending the availability of public conveniences to our residents. So I thought I was very grateful for leadership and Councillor Kamali in particular to work with us on that one, and I think it was a good win for our residents. I also want to mention the air quality, where we had a large number of residents come in and partake in that session, and we were particularly grateful for Professor Kelly from Imperial College, who's one of the world experts in air quality and the causes of air quality, to come and address residents and members of the committee, and I think that was particularly informative. And also another area of very high public engagement was on the flood risk management working group chaired by my colleague Councillor Adurian. And not only did we have significant contributions from members of the public and residents group, but we also had Thames Water come in and answer our questions. And I noted that just a few days after that, the CEO of Thames Water resigned. So maybe we were a little too tough on them, or perhaps that was for other reasons. But I think the important point is we got a number of all our recommendations in that report were accepted, and we got a number of answers for residents and commitments to action, particularly from Thames Water. So I was very proud of the work done there, as I say, chaired by Councillor Adurian. And finally, I'll just say, we've got a lot to scrutinise in the next municipal year. We're looking in more detail at air quality, at planning enforcement, biodiversity, culture, particularly. We're lucky in this borough to host two of the premier cultural London events in Notting Hill Carnival and Opera Holland Park, so we'll be looking at those, as well as waste management and streetscapes. So though we have a very busy schedule, I would just like to say to all members, if there are particular issues of importance to residents that come to your attention, please do refer them to the committee, and we will do our best to make space to scrutinise those as well. Thank you.
Councillor Enlahi, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for giving us this opportunity to reflect on scrutiny. In particular, I was honored to chair, and it was very challenging to be the first and last chair of the Grenfell Recovery Scrutiny Committee. And I would not let this moment pass without passing a great tribute to my to the vice chair who passed away, Councillor Spalding, who was excellent support to me as a first chair, facing a major challenge, and the team behind the governance in terms of supporting me during this phases. So the officers that were doing their excellent due diligence in making sure the different items to be discussed were properly scrutinized. So I'm really grateful as well to Jackie and her team and the whole governance team who really make the scrutiny process so transparent and challenging to address the key issues in that both domains, Grenfell area, as well as the Adult Social Care and Health Select Committee. So I really, when Councillor Spalding, every time I face a challenge, he was there by me, standing and supporting. And this is a fantastic example for collaboration and support, aiming to help and address the key issues for our residents and for us as a council, delivering the best of our ability. And on that note, I just want to, taking this opportunity, although it's not directly scrutiny as such, but to pass a level of thanks, because we've been recently very well scrutinized in a way in North Kensington when we delivered the Big Cook-Off Challenge. So we had a great team, members, who delivered excellent work for our community, and I hope this will reflect on our working relationship in the council or what's to be done and to be for the prosperity and success for our residents. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for giving me this opportunity to highlight some of the key issues facing us in terms of collaboration and working for what's best for our council and for our residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Does anybody else want to speak? Councillor Wheel, would you like to sum up?
I think everybody has covered everything admirably. I'd just like to fill up a hole I forgot because I can't read my own writing, to thank Councillor Pascal, who has not only been a marvellous Vice Chairman, but also chaired our Budget Working Party, which took up a lot of effort over the last year. So thanks to him, and I reiterate my thanks to all members for their active participation this year.
Does Council agree with recommendation 2.1 on page 47 of the agenda pack to note the annual report? The report is noted. Item 12. I have received notice of 3 questions to lead members. I now invite Councillor Joanna Gardner to ask a question to Councillor Emma Will.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To ask the leading member, Councillor Will, if, following the increase in dog ownership, the council can expand the area in Holland Park where dogs can be led off lead to provide a larger area where they can be exercised. Thank you.
My thanks to Councillor Gardner for this question, and I can hear that there are a number of keen dog owners in the room who support the request. I think if I've learned one thing on my time on this council, it is Carwe Carnum, and by which I mean that any issue surrounding dogs always creates a lot of passion and interest. So with that in mind, I have suggested already to Councillor Gardner that we meet with the head of parks and discuss, have a look again at Holland Park. I'm going to say I'm absolutely neutral on this issue. I declare I'm not a dog owner, but absolutely happy to discuss it with her and officers and see if there's anything we can do about this. And thank you again for the question.
Councillor Gardner, do you have a follow-up question? I now invite Councillor Linda Wade to ask a question to Councillor Jem Kamali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the holiday season starts, one area of concern is the ability of the borough's noise and nuisance team to respond to persistent alarms in unoccupied homes when the owner cannot be contacted. What powers are available to the council, and how can they improve the service or sanctions increased on those that fail to respond?
Councillor Jem Kalamali.
Thank you, Councillor Wade, for giving me the opportunity to learn about another part of the Council's enforcement powers that I was otherwise unaware. So I did a little bit of digging, and I've uncovered that over the last year, we've actually had over 600 of these complaints, which is a far greater number than I was expecting to hear, and that there are a number of steps that the Council can take to rectify that. So by and large, the intruder alarms have an automatic cut-off after 20 minutes. Where that doesn't happen, we do reach out to the homeowners or business owners through records that we hold, be that sort of business rates, council tax, and otherwise. If that still fails to make contact with the owner, if it's late at night, as the case may be, we are able to enter into the homes or to the businesses to silence these alarms, but that requires the use of a locksmith and an alarm engineer. If in fact we need to use force to enter the building, then we do have to get a warrant. And last year there were 9 occasions where officers silenced alarms using services of an alarm engineer, but only 1 instance where we had to use a warrant of entry to use force to enter the property. The cost of this action is then recharged to the person responsible for the alarm system, but it is a very interesting point that you've raised, so I'm going to meet with officers to see if there's something we can perhaps resolve that much quicker. So thank you.
Yes, I do have a supplementary. I think that what we need to find out is when people have gone away and the alarm repeats, i.e. it's not just gone off for one single night or whatever, and if people go away for a month and residents complain, I would like to know whether it's possible for the council to procure the information about the private owners from council data. And is it possible that the council just might do a reminder on social media before the summer holiday that residents should be nominating somebody else to be able to facilitate alarms going off? It's just an idea.
Councillor Kamali.
It's indeed a very good idea, so I'm more than happy to take that up with the team and with the communications department as well. Thank you.
Councillor Dent Code to ask a question to Councillor Jem Kamali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. According to the Healthy Streets recent report, our beautiful borough is at the bottom of the class for cycling infrastructure, polluting vehicles, pedestrian casualties, and we're sadly the worst borough in London for cycling casualties. On all indicators, the borough is scoring worse. Given that the council is working towards being the best council and has declared an emergency, climate emergency some months ago, and claims to be cycling friendly, what progress can we anticipate towards being top of the class next year?
Councillor Jem Kamali.
Thank you, Councillor Dent-Code. I'm not sure I completely agree with the comments there, but at least we do agree that we have a beautiful borough. I'm going to highlight some of the most important statistics from that report, which are, of course, casualty data. When it comes to cycle casualties, the London average is 30 per borough. Obviously, 30 is still too many. We had 31, and this was for years gone by. The Velo Paradise of Hackney had 50. The car banning Hammersmith and Fulham had 32, and the Labourised Wandsworth and Westminster both had over 70, respectively. On pedestrian casualties, in fact, we were below the London average, which is good to hear. London average being 29, and we were 26. This doesn't mean the job is done. Obviously, we have to continue to improve our roads, and the councillor will be aware recently of the consultation for High Street Kensington and Fulham Road, and I believe even Councillor Lari raised it earlier about cycling provision in the borough. I wanted to check to make sure that all the councillors were involved in that consultation, and I have their responses here. So Councillor Lari's is unfortunately a blank page. Councillor Dent-Code's also, sadly, a blank page. Councillor Ali is the leader of the group. Your response is here, also a blank page. So unlike colleagues on this side of the chamber, where we are determined to improve cycling infrastructure in Kensington and Chelsea, it seems, unfortunately, that those in front of me are not so keen.
Councillor Dent-Code, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have absolutely no idea what this consultation is, and if the consultation with their own councillors gets such an appalling result, it's no wonder that our consultations, for example, on finance, reach like 13 people out of 140-odd thousand in the year. I do want to ask Councillor Kamali what he thinks of how we're doing with our 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, because there's next to no, if any, implementation, and certainly in North Kensington, we've got digital monitoring, speed monitoring, and people are just whizzing by and saying, oh, look at me, I'm going 35 miles an hour. And there's zero implementation, as far as I'm concerned, that there is enforcement happening in our neighbouring boroughs and not here. Do you have any ideas on that to make it safer for everybody?
Thank you. So actually, you've picked up on the one where we are the best in London. We came first for 20 miles an hour in the Healthy Streets scorecard. Obviously, but obviously the councillor will be aware that the enforcement of such limits rests with Sadiq Khan. So any lack of enforcement can only be solved with a vote for Susan Hall. I also wanted to raise the issue of the consultation. We had over 1,500 responses, including from a number of councillors. So we'll sort of look to make sure that your response is there on the next cycle lane. Thank you.
Item 13. I have received 4 requests to speak under Standing Order 11, which is the maximum allowed. Could the following members please speak for up to 2 minutes, each on a ward or other live issue of a general broad principle? Before I announce the names, may I please request 2 minutes? No more, please. Thank you. Councillor Janet Evans, Councillor Walla Idris, Councillor Eva Jedid, and Councillor Sina Lari.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, I do apologise. Could we substitute Councillor Hargreaves for Councillor Evans, please?
Of course. Councillor Janet Evans. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hargreaves. Sorry, apologies.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor. And just quickly, I would like to draw the Chamber's attention to this wonderful little leaflet that we've literally just been published, and I hope will go in all of your pigeonholes over the next day or two, which is the World's End Area Support Advice Services for Residents. And I'd just like to thank the lead member for Communities and her team for producing that amazing leaflet. And of course, as ward councillors, we know only too well about the vibrant nature of the World's End area and all the activities that go on there. And on behalf of my fellow ward councillors, I would like to thank the community organisations there and all the residents that work hard to make sure this is a greener, safer and fairer place to live, and a fantastic place to live in this part of the borough. And when you look at this leaflet, you will be amazed by the number of different activities that are going on across the area. Chelsea Theatre, now a vibrant hub on the World's End estate, producing great plays, great community activities and involving the community at large. The Big Local. Some of you in this chamber will remember 10 years ago when that Big Local was awarded £1 million of one of the few places in the country to be awarded that. 10 years later, it is still going amazingly strong and doing fantastic activities on the estate, and is about to set it up as an independent charity as the 10-year funding programme finishes. Chelsea Youth Club, which again is doing fantastic stuff with support from Harrow Club, a great programme that they run late on a Thursday evening, starting at 10:30 in the evening, to try and attract those hard-to-reach young people on the estate who actually need activities very late at night to keep them occupied. Chelsea Muslim Community Hub, a fantastic organisation supporting a particular part of that community, providing a number of activities for them. And the World's End Under 5 Centre, again great, supporting a different age group there. So Thank you very much again for this, and we look forward to a summer of exciting programmes. Today alone I was speaking to 2 residents who are organising community activities in the next few weeks. So thank you very much for this, and here's to the World's End estate and its area. Thank you.
Councillor Idris.
Okay, I need to follow that somehow. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Of course, I'd love to talk about Brompton and Handstown, any opportunity given. And forgive me if I gush with love and affection. It's a place where I lived for over 20 years, and I raised my family there. So it's very, very close to my heart. Not because I'm its councillor, but it's because my home. We have some wonderful things happening in Brompton and Handstown. We have been having jet washing, which I'm pretty sure, Madam Mayor, you had experience with your lovely chain and your lovely orange get-up. So we've been jet watering a lot of streets. We have upcoming streetscapes and beautification of a lot of streets, Butte Street starting in September, and we're having Draycote Avenue corner with Walton Street coming up also sometime between now and the new year. And of course we finished Knightsbridge, and I would love to invite everyone to come and look at the wonderful, beautiful, outstanding, world-standing Knightsbridge. It's an amazing place to visit and live, of course. And also we fired the gun yesterday on gentrifying and beautifying Beecham Place, a place very, very close to my heart, has been left to kind of been neglected a little bit and needed a little bit of love and some touch, and we're doing some wonderful things, and hopefully in the years to come, every street in Brompton and Handstown will be clean, beautiful, green, and inviting. Thank you.
Councillor Ewa Jedid.
Thank you. There is an issue in Dalgano which is to be brought to the council attention, and can the lead member for the place environment care to respond in some ways sooner or later whenever you are available? The council has recognized Little Wormwood Scrubs as a nature conservation area of local importance. In 2008, a public consultation took place. Some money were awarded by Boris Johnson, and this was a time when we took over as a council to manage this park. And when consultation took place, a great insight was taken into community needs, engaging with young people who came today, regular users, dog walkers in Holland Park, coming to Little Scrubs as well, park police and park staff. 10-year management plan has expired back in 2019, 4 years ago. And the local community wishes to have say being heard. So having in view that at the moment you are running consultation for Sunbeam Gardens, and again Green Fund has been awarded there, will the lead member for planning, environment and places cover public consultation for Little Scrubs as well? I think we need to understand that since we have this action plan for crisis in climate, current metro, leaving Little Scrubs for 4 years without any management in regards to biodiversity, it's quite disgraceful. I gather you promised £6 million for green spaces. I really would like to know, under freedom of information, how much I get in Dalgano from this money. 2022, in one of your leaflets for your campaigning, you promised another £100 million for equality. How could you leave Little Scrubs, the biggest green space, in Kensington and Chelsea Borough without management plan for biodiversity for 4 years? That's disgrace.
Councillor Sina Lari.
So, Madam Mayor, I'll be a bit direct. There's a very serious issue I'm going to discuss. In April 2021, in the midst of the Grenfell inquiry, residents of North Kensington were horrified to discover Kingspan material being used for the construction of Barbary School and Queen's Mill School for children with special needs. In response to this disgrace, which was highlighted thanks only to the close scrutiny from local residents, the Deputy Leader at the time committed to, quote, an audit of all our new builds currently underway in the borough. He also promised that products only from approved suppliers would be used and committed to review all supply chains, having regard to evidence which emerged during the inquiry. Therefore, imagine the shock, horror and disgust of my Golborne residents in Adair and Hazelwood Towers, who are currently the victims of over a year-long delayed botched external works project, when it was discovered on the 7th of July that Kingspan material was placed on 16 balconies. While on this occasion it was caught, and clearly the contractor Lawtech failed to comply, residents placed the blame on this council for the repeated abject failure in general oversight and the unsuitability of its contract management regime. Now, rather than explain the issue and answer residents' questions at their monthly meeting last week, who were all terrified from this latest scandal in the refurbishment, already an example I can give you is that toxic fumes were actually pumped through many residents' apartments last month from unannounced waterproofing works. The council leadership and managerial staff were completely absent from this meeting, leaving more junior staff to bear the brunt of issues which were not their fault. There are questions remaining which emerged during the meeting and concerns from officers as to whether any other Kingspan material is on the building. Residents are feeling completely let down, and RBKC does not care at all about social housing tenants in the wider community affected by Grenfell. Residents therefore are demanding to see RBKC's BSc audit report, which they brag about, which needs to be urgently reviewed.
Could you please wrap it up,
It's
Councillor
unacceptable
Lowry.
that 2 years after an urgent investigation, action was promised, that this could have
Councillor
happened
Lowry,
again.
thank you.
Is it a
thank
one-off?
you.
Is it a two-off? The
Thank
council
you.
must urgently commit to review its procurement system and ensure that
Councillor
Kingspan material
Lowry,
is never used
please.
on any project ever
Please.
again. And stop
Councillor
shouting.
Lowry.
Honestly, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. Your commitment to the Charter for Public
Councillor Lowry.
Participation is completely nonchalant.
This is-
we look
please.
forward to a commitment from the leader and deputy leader as to how they will remediate this.
Councillor Lowry, I am very sorry, but this is just not acceptable. Please, 2 minutes. No. We have 2 minutes, and it's 2 minutes for everyone. Otherwise, I'll have to open up my room 101. Sorry. 2 minutes, that's it. Thank you. Item 14. Oh, no, that's a different one. Item 14. Members will see that we have 4 motions printed in the agenda. Motion 1 is on the subject of assistance to children in poverty. I call on Councillor Bakhtir formally to move the motion, standing in his name, and Councillor Noor to second.
I beg to move, Madam Mayor.
I now invite Councillor Bakhtir to speak for up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 25% of borough children are living in poverty, and 23% of them are not getting good marks on specific subjects. I am aware that the council is funding some community centers to run after-school classes, but this isn't enough. It is time to explore new ways to run in free one-to-one tuition for those in most need, and a mechanism that identifies these students needs to be researched and established. Madam Mayor, I was stopped by a lady in the neighborhood who asked me to ask for my help and advice. Her children went to the same school as my children. They were very bright, and the oldest is now finishing her degree at Imperial College. The younger, who was even brighter, however, is struggling and unfortunately dropped it altogether. A positive example. Some very intelligent and kind students have been providing free one-to-one tuitions for the past 3 years. An A-level student who was struggling with maths last year and got a C grade was helped by a kind and bright student for 4 months, 2 to 4 hours a week. That was one-to-one. and was awarded a top student in maths at that school only 2 weeks ago. He is expecting to get 3 A stars, and he's got an offer from Imperial College because of the help he had received from his friends. The one-to-one tuition is about teaching a child while monitoring their progress and build trust, encouraging them to achieve more, helping the child mentally by raising self-esteem and confidence. Some students could benefit from group learning. However, there are others who can't. We and the Council owe the duty of care to our residents, children, and students. I am aware of the services and funds that the Council provides to the voluntary sector, but this isn't enough, and it needs to be redirected. It's not about quantity and numbers, but about prioritizing the most important ones efficiently. We need to consider spending directly on those who need the service and to bypass the admin and unnecessary costs. We need to explore utilizing schools, teachers, and GPs to help identify students who could benefit from the most from this one-to-one tuition proposal. Madam Mayor, the majority party, and through their leadership team, often emphasize on working together as a team. Yet we are here offering a solution to a rooted problem. Instead of supporting it, they have amended the motion by bringing in a new motion which doesn't have any correlation to the original motion and focuses on congratulating themselves. I am not expecting the other side of the chamber to understand the importance of this motion, because neither they or their supporters need this type of support for their children, because they can afford to pay for their privately, whereas most of those who we represent are in desperate need for this kind of initiatives. And finally, I have had a brief online meeting with the executive director of Borough of Children's Services a few hours ago, and now I am more convinced that the Council is not providing this type of services that I'm proposing. Therefore, I would like to ask the other side of the chamber to withdraw their amendment and to support this motion to help all of those students who live in poverty and lack access to opportunities that money would provide otherwise. Thank you.
Councillor New to speak up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The educational attainment gap is a root cause of inequality in this borough. One of the immediate effects of the COVID was increased education inequality. The huge disruption it has caused meant the children from poorer families were not able to access the educational support they need, because in their household, whether in temporary accommodation or overcrowded, they were not able to access quiet room where they can do their work, a secure internet service, and that was the reason they could not catch up. Up to today, they can't do it. Madam Mayor, we can only confess, and I personally can confess as a parent who send all my children to local schools. Our local schools are one of the best in the country, but inequalities in education attainment is also one of the highest in the country. In this borough, we're very lucky to have charities and local organizations who support projects which support children, and those include Kesson Chelsea Foundation, Young Kesson Chelsea Foundation, Lyle Bab Trust, which is family run. They are funding of a number of impactful projects, reaching out children with tailored and targeted support over the next 3 years will cost 1.2 million, and we can only thank their generosity and understanding what the needs of our children. Madam Mayor, if we are honest about wanting this borough to be fairer and the best council in the country, then the leadership team of this council and collectively, the whole this chamber, we need to support those organizations I named earlier to double their work supporting our children, which will mean the borough only need to match fund what Kaiser Chelsea Foundation and Young Casey Foundation and Ladbroke Trust are doing for our children. That will then create a better results, reduce inequalities, and more reasons to celebrate together for the achievement of our children and our local schools. Thank you.
Members will see that an amendment has been submitted and is on page 67 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Pascal to move the amendment and Councillor Lindsay to second.
I beg to move, Madam Mayor.
I now invite Councillor Pascal to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to bring this amendment. Perhaps I ought to declare here and now that I'm a governor of 2 maintained schools in the borough. Firstly, I would like to thank Councillors Bakhtiar and Benton for raising this very important subject. Certainly, the COVID and Ukraine-related events of the last few years have added extra difficulties for some of our youngest children in particular. We should pay tribute to all of our borough children, together with their parents, carers, school teachers and voluntary and charitable organisations, for all their efforts in enabling the majority of children to catch up and fulfil their potential, which is a major duty under the new expression of safeguarding that has come out recently. Some of the instances I have witnessed personally include children fully including SEN colleagues in Sports Day, remote classes for members in COVID lockdown in Poland, partner teachers enabling greater depth understanding in class, immediate marking to the individual child, which helps enormously the child, but also reducing the load on the teacher. School meals for all, school attendance initiatives, local communities raising funds for school extra activities, nursery and family centre service settings. There are also several diverse council-supported initiatives, such as youth employment, West London Zone, Future Men, Early Help, youth clubs and hubs. In doing more to help, as is called for in the motion, it is absolutely essential that the resources are focused and targeted where they are most beneficial to the individuals and our young population as a whole. Rather than one-size-fits-all approach, as proposed, school teachers, family and children's service officers and voluntary services providers have the skills and the knowledge of each individual child and family. They can thus ensure that extra support is well integrated with other education provision, such as is fitting for each individual child. This is also aligned with the implementation of the vision of the Council Plan, the forward thinking of the Health and Wellbeing Strategy of 2023-33, which just finished consultation, and providing the best safeguarding for our children, particularly in its 2023 interpretation. It's for these reasons that, whilst welcoming the intent of the motion, we propose that the amendment, and the lead member commitment in particular, to ensure its implementation, leads to the maximum impact in enabling our children to achieve their own individual potential and successful transition to adult life, which is the responsibility of all of us as councillors. Madam Mayor, I formally propose the amendment to the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Lindsay.
Madam Mayor, like Councillor Pascal, I would like to thank
Councillors Bakhtiar and Noor for raising this important subject. Life has become much more complex and challenging for everyone in the last 16 or so months following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, with its many consequences. Whilst applauding the motion's aim of wanting the best for all children, I do want to question aspects of the original motion. It slightly seems to ignore much of the excellent work that is currently being done by organisations such as the Rugby Portobello Trust, the Clement James Centre, the Harrow Club and West London Zone, to help many, many children local to their area and beyond with reading and writing, particularly if English is not their mother tongue, and maths too, for those who struggle at school with this important subject. Some of the voluntary work is done by adults, parents often of the children who also help. Often, they are only a few years older than those whom they are helping, so can remember the struggles they may have had. And many of those who help benefit themselves by learning to explain why things are the way they are, whether grammar, spelling, pronunciation, or long division, or whatever else it may be. And their work of mentoring, as well as providing extra help, is to be commended. Over the last couple of decades, we have seen significant improvement in education standards in London as a whole, in part because of a recognition that one size does not fit all. Different children need to be helped in different ways. Notwithstanding the overall improvements, some young people, irrespective of background, are not academically gifted. All but 2 of RBKC's 40 or so schools are good or excellent, which is markedly higher than average. RBKC's education department within Families and Children's Services, our schools and our pupils are to be commended for what they achieve in their exams and more than their exams. With the additional help that many can or do receive from organisations such as the ones I mentioned, the Rugby Portobello Trust, the Clement James Centre, West London Zone and the Harrow Club, the life chances of RBKC children are good. As Mayor, I visited or saw many organisations specifically concerned with mental health and well-being. A number of these were in the north of the borough. That will surprise no one. The following is a list of some of the work done by others and at least partly funded by the council. At school, one-to-one support for individuals with access to a range of tailored academic support and extracurricular activities. Youth employment projects for dedicated careers. Training and employment mentoring. Support services to children and young people. I stress that is what is currently going on. And much more. The wide range of providers is indicative of the way in which different people benefit more and others less from those particular providers. I recall discussing with one leader of one of the organisations that the borough funds how modest council funding was critical to the much larger amounts raised by that organisation, as it showed how we as a council are invested in and with them. And that particular organisation is very good at helping those whom it knows it can help. But that is not everyone. It is with organisations such as this that strong ongoing relationships need to be nurtured, better to help those they can help, and with others, so that those others in turn can help different children. To conclude, Madam Mayor, I am a Conservative. I don't think government can or should do everything. The small platoons of civic society are often much more effective in their way of helping than central and local government. And my last point is brief. I've only got 15 or so seconds. Madam Mayor, I'm sure the lead member will continue to focus her department on those who need help most, and otherwise to continue to listen widely to councillors, officers, the voluntary organisations, residents, and others, not least youth council members, who have an interest in these matters. Madam Mayor, thank you.
I will now open the motion up to debate. Councillors who have indicated to speak are Councillor Lane, Councillor Ali, Councillor Ahmed and Councillor Rossi. Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to make clear that I do agree with much of the sentiment in Labour's motion here, specifically the impact of lockdown restrictions and school closures on children in the pandemic. I'm glad that at least the local Labour Party now realised that. But it's important to note that when government opened schools nationally, the Labour Party opposed that policy. Clearly, there's been some movement here in terms of the ability, the new leadership here, to think critically. I hope that continues, and I hope we will never close schools again. Now, in terms of the motion itself, what I would say is, well, who can disagree with mentoring for underprivileged children? It does sound like a great idea, and as someone who went to a state school himself and saw later on at university the advantages that private school pupils have, it is clear that those pupils who go to state schools or who come from disadvantaged backgrounds do benefit from tutoring, from mentoring, from support from teachers and other pupils that perform better academically. However, what I would say is the specific means by which Labour are aiming to address this problem, which is by a top-down spending spree, is not the right solution. The best way to address this problem is through innovative solutions. My friends on this side of the chamber have already mentioned some of the voluntary services in this borough. I would mention another, Mentor Junior, which was started by an Abingdon resident when she was only 17. Now that charity matches the best performing pupils at A-level with underperforming GCSE pupils and actually gets those older pupils to mentor the younger pupils voluntarily without any cost at all. It's those types of solutions that are going to solve this problem, not spending residents' money. We have great voluntary services in this borough. We have excellent schools and we have excellent pupils. What I would say is we should trust them to get this right rather than government. Additionally, I would just draw members' attention to some of the aspects of the Labour motion itself. My eye was particularly drawn to point number 4, reward those children who do well to motivate the other children. Well, it seems that all children are equal, but some children are more equal than others. This is quite a Stakhanovite right-wing policy, certainly too right-wing for my tastes. What I would say is we should reward all children, even those who don't do well, because some children don't do well because they may have been raised in care, or they may have a single parent who works full-time. I think it's important to reward every child, not just those that are academically gifted. So finally, Madam Mayor, I would say that although I do welcome the fact that the Labour group under more sensible leadership have identified a serious problem, the solution does need to be tweaked, and I think our amendment does that in a very sensible way, and that's why I support it, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ali.
Madam Mayor, I withdraw to speak on this motion because of other commitments, but now, since you've called me, I will say a few words about the motion itself. And first of all, may I thank Councillor Mohamed Bakhtiar and Councillor Noor for bringing this really timely motion, simply because what we at the Labour Party and the Labour group in Kensington and Chelsea see is education, which is a pathway to prosperity, whether a child is born in inequality or rich family or billionaires, they all should get the opportunities to succeed, and education is that path. What we're seeing here in this borough at this moment and under the current leadership, they should actually think about it and open their eyes why this borough is the last remaining blue borough, simply because they have not been listening. And I believe we will work very hard day in, day out to make it red and to make it Labour-run party borough, just like Hammersmith and Fulham Westminster, Wandsworth Council, and the rest, if they continue to ignore such important information like education. I really do not care about what people say behind it while I'm talking, but it will be respectful to listen. This is the residence of RBKC. And if you don't value education, and if you don't value people who are in need at this moment of crisis, when will you wake up to understand? Once again, thank you for bringing this on board, and it will be recorded, and hopefully residents will have their say. Thank you.
Councillor Ahmed.
It sounds as though the message that we're getting is that you agree with the overall sentiment of the motion, but you will do nothing in addition other than rely on already overwhelmed voluntary sector organisations and charities. Other than, of course, reopening schools when teachers, parents and medical experts are telling us that it's unsafe to do so, other than that, of course. And I mean, it's difficult to understand how the motion could be voted against as it is. And I make no apologies for raising this again and again, but we have two of the most income-deprived wards in London, in Golborne and Notting Dale. And this is the council that says it wants to be the best. And really the question we should be asking constantly is what more can be done to rectify this? The message of the amendment is nothing. Nothing more can be done to rectify this. It offers so little in terms of additional targeted support during this time of actual crisis for some people in our community. For example, the amendment changes the words commission additional schemes to the phrase continue to contribute through already existing provisions. So again, the motion is saying, let's do precisely nothing. The impacts of deprivation follow children all the way into adulthood, and they spread into every aspect of their lives with poor academic achievement, behavioural problems, inequalities in health, higher rates of mental illness, obesity, and ultimately years taken away from life expectancy. By targeting support to children who are the most deprived in the borough, it will actually go a really long way in addressing so many of the issues that the council claims it wants to tackle. From school exclusions, which again are amongst the highest in London, in this borough and nationally, to tackling inequalities in health and well-being as stated in the social care and health work programmes, including addressing the staggering levels of child obesity in wards like Golborne, for which food poverty is an important driver. I remember a few months ago, universal free school meals were referred to as virtue signalling in this chamber. Actually, the evidence base that it's the most cost-efficient method of delivering school meals in state schools, and when you consider that a third of all children actually living in poverty do not qualify for free school meals under the current rules, it's actually the only way to ensure all those who need it are included. Again, 1 in 4 children in our borough live in poverty. And that number is, of course, much higher for those children living in the communities we serve in Notting Dale. Investing in those children now is one of the best investments we can make, especially with targeting support for those children most at risk of experiencing poverty. And I mean those in single-parent families, of whom 44% live in poverty, and those of Black and Asian backgrounds. I think it's fair to say that local children have, under the austerity agenda, already lost far too much. Reduced child benefits, which lost a quarter of their value in the last decade, and the shameful 2-child cap introduced by George Osborne in 2017, cuts to state education, loss of Shaw Strat, library closures, even our beloved library in Ladbroke Grove, a lifeline to me personally growing up, even that library wasn't immune to an attempted closure to the public back in 2016. So it's time to reinvest.
Yeah.
It did happen.
Councillor Rossi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I would also like to thank Councillor Bakhtiar and Councillor Noor for bringing this motion to the Chamber tonight, as the matter of the education of our young is close to all of our hearts. The success of our children, no doubt, is dependent upon the excellent schools in our borough. But as it is the end of term, I would like to give a report on what is happening in my ward, specifically at the Earls Court Youth Club. The motion asks for additional measures that can be put in to help children. So I will list what the Youth Club offers at the present time. Firstly, and I have spoken about this before in the Chamber, it was with the help of the Youth Club that the lead member and Education Department managed to get 8 excluded children back into full-time education. The Youth Club currently offers one-to-one tuition to children who are falling behind, a study space, a homework club, and extra support for children whose parents do not speak English as a first language, and educational attainment classes. And the attainment is high. This year, of the young people who attend the Oscourt Youth Club, 29 got into university, including 3 for law, 1 for pharmacy, and 2 medical students. Former councillor Alison Jackson ran a photographic competition where the winners' work were displayed at the Saatchi Gallery. We also had a very fun evening here at the Town Hall, where in the Mayor's Parlour, where the work was also displayed. The Youth Club won 22 prizes, and some of the winners went on to the University of the Arts to study design, film, and photography. The Youth Club is open to all. It is a charity, and it is supported by the services of this council. It is also supported by us 3 ward councillors, and I congratulate the club on its achievements. Thank you.
Councillor Will.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really feel I ought to speak as somebody who, for sort of 8 years, was lead member for education, and a couple of factual inaccuracies that I think need to be accounted for. But I guess, first of all, I wanted to say the good news is I think there's absolutely broad consensus in this chamber about the impact of COVID, war, and the cost of living on children, and particularly the poorest and most vulnerable children. And I thank Councillor Bakhtiar, Councillor for bringing this motion, because I think they are spot on. And I think, and it's something that we in the leadership team have already been considering. And it seems to me that in the end, we're really just talking about semantics with the motion. We all agree on the principle. And we as a council have always invested very highly in children. So Councillor Ali, I'm afraid, admire you as I do, you are completely incorrect to say that we do not care or do not invest in education in this borough. We have one of the highest spends in London on education for children, and I have done for many years, long before you were a councillor, in fact, so I know this, you don't. And I am sure that if the answer is just to spend more money, then we will certainly put more money into it. But I also know, and I was the person who introduced the West London zone, that you want to do this in a very careful, thoughtful way. Poverty is critical, but it may be other factors to do with family breakdowns. You work with the schools know the children best. The Labour policy of always, let's just put more admin and bureaucracy in top down is not the right answer. But as I say, I think we all agree that this is very important, something that's to be looked at carefully. And then again, just one point of accuracy for Councillor Ahmed, and I agree with many of her comments. Again, she wasn't a councillor at the time. We never tried to close Ladbroke Road. That's just factually incorrect. No, don't know. Let me finish. Then you can have your say, because I was the councillor responsible. No, we didn't. We were building a new one next door and moving it. We were never closed. There would have always been a library and facilities there.
Thank you. Councillor Will.
Yeah, so you tried to lease, you tried to lease the library to a nearby private school and move it to the youth club across the road, which was a completely inappropriate space.
Councillor, please. Okay. I now invite Councillor Foulkes as the lead member to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. And thank you again to my colleagues over there, Councillor Bakhtir and Councillor Noor, for bringing this motion. We all agree that COVID-19, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and of course the terrible Grenfell fire tragedy has had a huge impact on our children. They have missed a lot of of time in their schools, and they've gone through very traumatic things. And this has had a huge effect. We're all acknowledging that. Mental health has increased, attendance at schools has decreased, and we need to focus all our energies on those children, which is, and I have to at this moment congratulate the children for their resilience, and also the teachers and the schools for doing the amazing, amazing work they've done to support our pupils. So actually I just find it completely depressing and rather sort of despairing that the party opposite seem to have absolutely no idea about what is actually going on and how we are investing in our children. I just, it really has left me slightly sort of lost for words, really, as to what's going on. I mean, Councillor Bakhtir, I know you have every good intention, and I also know that you did spend a lot of time with one of our officers this afternoon, explaining at great length to you all the things that we have put in place for our children. And yet you came here tonight to say we weren't doing anything. I find that astonishing. I'm going to list some of them later. You say that you mention individual mentoring for tutors. Yes, individual mentoring for one particular student might be the right thing. But as my colleagues have already mentioned here, this isn't necessarily the right thing for everyone. All children have different situations, different circumstances, different needs, and we need to target those needs individually. Councillor Noor, you were talking about match funding with some of our organisations like KNC Foundation, Young KNC. As my other colleagues have mentioned, we already put more funding than virtually any other council into supporting our children, and we work alongside our incredibly important and valuable community sector work. As Councillor Lindsay highlighted, and actually he emphasised when he was mayor, and the valuable work he did working with Rugby Portobello and Clement James, they do astonishing work of mentoring our children, mostly with volunteers from our civic society who go in after work and tutor maths and English and produce amazing results. We have Inter-University that runs homework clubs for our children and again gets children into top universities. So I can't go into all the incredible things that are already happening in this borough. I just really wanted to thank my fellow councillors, Councillor Lane, for his very passionate speech, Councillor Bethel, Councillor Lindsay, Councillor Will. We all feel so strongly, as I think you could have heard from the speeches we've made, how important our children are, how important their education is, and how we are putting every single ounce of our time and effort into them. We do have the best schools, so I think it's very disingenuous to equate poverty with poor education. We're not denying that we have a very unequal borough, but we are saying we have the best schools in the country and that the attainment gap for our pupils in the school is the smallest attainment gap in the country. So social mobility through education is the highest, and you mustn't ignore that point. There are some other things that I'll just correct before I'll try and whiz through some of the really important things that we're doing. But there were too many errors from the other side to correct them all. And I would really like to invite you all to come and have a meeting, maybe with myself and officers, to hear what we're doing, because I think it's important that you know that. Councillor Ahmed, first of all, I just want to correct you. You're very keen on exclusions. The data you're using are actually incorrect. They're from the pre-COVID strategy, and they were actually referring to fixed-term exclusions, not permanent exclusions. We have below national levels of permanent exclusions, and our fixed-term exclusions, which is when they're removed from the schools for up to 8 weeks, 85% of those children go back to mainstream schools. And it's important to note that, because we want to support our children in education. And I also wanted to just say that during COVID, as a result of that, this council gave £500,000 to school during the pandemic and an extra £500,000 to schools in North Kensington. And we agreed that the head teachers of those schools could use that money flexibly so they knew how best to support their schools. Now, I've got 3 more pages
Councillor
of all the
Foakes.
things we've done, which I would invite you, please, to come and meet with us so we can share them with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Pascal to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that it would be fair to say that, having listened to the debate, that there is a genuine desire on part of all the councillors in this room and those who are not here present that we should do the maximum that we can to improve the life chances of the children in this borough. The division that we've heard about, apart from the politics playing, the real division has been about the means. And one of the things from my experience as a governor for the last 12 years is that it's been drilled into me very, very thoroughly that the intending to do the right thing but not doing it in the right way for the individual child can actually be more harmful than doing good. And it does require the individual teacher and parent and child to align in what is appropriate for that and best for that child to achieve their own individual potential. And that has recently been moved front and central into the recent changes in the legislation with regard to safeguarding and keeping children safe in education, KICSI, as it's known now as KICSI 23. And along with the effects of the internet, those seem to be the added responsibility for governors in schools. I think we've all recognised the amazing work done by a wide range of people and organisations across the borough. Councillor Lindsay spelt out a couple of examples and particularly mentions also children helping children as well as parents and teachers. Councillor Lane talked about mentoring and pupil mentoring as well, and rewarding all children rather than just selecting a few. Councillor Ali talked about education, but I can't remember what else he said apart from trying to win an election. I congratulate him on winning the election in his own party, but we maybe disagree with wishing him to win the other election. Councillor Ahmed said that we were proposing to do nothing. We can never do enough, but I can testify to the fact that there are hundreds of really talented teachers and trainee teachers and administrative staff who are innovating in a whole number of ways. All across the borough, I've witnessed that there are new things happening the whole time. The best ideas will come to the top and be copied elsewhere, but there's not only a degree of achievement which has been recognised nationally, but there are new initiatives happening every single day in all the schools in the south and the north of the borough, which I've witnessed firsthand. I spend many hours a week in schools going round, not only the schools around Governor, but other schools as well. I urge you to do the same, to visit the schools and to recognise the breadth of talent in the pupils, but also in the parents, the teachers, and so on, and the voluntary sectors who so ably support. Councillor Rossi gave us some clear examples of a particular organisation that she has contact with and the astounding results that have come from that one institution. But it is only one, not being disrespectful, it is only one institution in the borough that has achieved incredible results in helping. Councillor Will said that there had been a cross-party consensus which had gone on for many years about investing, and we have as a borough, well before I've only been a councillor for 13 years, But well before I became a councillor, this borough was investing very heavily money, staff, training, and holding things to account, scrutiny, etc. And it's the achievement of achieving this is the national respect that's been gained and marked has not happened by accident. It's happened through many, many years of work by many, many people. It is not enough. We should do more. And I think that in doing more, the prime thing that I'm looking for is that we make sure we keep the individual child, in our focus, and we don't try to apply a one-size-fits-all. And I think that is the fundamental difference between our side of the House and the opposition. We agree with this, we agree with the aims, but the way this is to be done needs to reflect the individual child. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I now invite Councillor Bakhtiar, as proposer of the original motion, to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes. But I see that Councillor Simmons would like to speak as well. So maybe you would like to confer with each other and see who wants to speak.
I would like, if you...
Instead, I'm sorry.
I wanted to contribute to the debate with a few remarks, but I see I've missed my moment, so this will have to be referred elsewhere, which it will be.
Councillor Bakhtiar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to thank your contributions and your remarks. Thank you very much. I do see a sense of support for the original motion, but the original motion was about one thing, and one thing only. We and I do recognize all the good work being put out there after school, in clubs and community centers. This is fantastic. But we still have 25% of our children are lagging behind academically. It's about them. We need to try something new. I'm not trying to bypass or criticize a work that the council is doing, but we have identified a problem where we meant to be working together. It's not election year. We identified the problem in our wards. Our children, 25% of our children living in poverty, and most of them are in North Kensington. We know this problem is there. I gave you one example. One student got a C last year in maths, and he was on the edge of being declined an offer from Imperial. He was helped by a bright student. He's not getting an A star. He came top of that school. Out of 1,400 students, within 4 months of one-to-one tuition, he's top of the students in maths, and he was awarded. And the other student got 2 awards. I'm giving you a life example. It happened only 2 weeks ago. So if we could do something to add another 3 to 5% to move from the 25%, we will be doing a great thing. The humanity is in crisis, politics in crisis. You see, we need to give a chance to every child if we can. We are not doing that. We are not doing enough. What we are doing is great. 75% of our children getting good support, but there is a chance, there is room for improvement. We could save another 5. They will make the decision. We could divert some of the resources we have to the community centers to a trial. I call it a trial, a year or 2, to see could we do one-to-one, because I know the impact of one-to-one tuition fees. I could give you 7 or 8 examples now. I could name names who benefited from this. Those who were delivering this were doing it for free. This is a good initiative. It needs to work. But you are missing this out. You are comparing that. We are criticizing you. We are not. We know this is missing. Could we work together to do this? You have decided. I'm still inviting you. Your motion is not solving this problem. Your motion is all about this, because you proposed something, it's from that side of the chamber. Okay, it needs to be, you need to claim, you want to claim the reward. People need to, residents could do that. And I offered you, we could do it together, cross-party. I offered you, I contacted you last week, and even a few months ago. I tried, let's do it cross-party, because I know this is a problem. Thank you.
I now put the amendment to the vote. Would those for the amendment please show? Would those against the amendment please show? Are there any abstentions? I declare the amendment carried. I now put the substantive motion as amended to the vote. Would those for the motion as amended please show? Would those against the motion amended please show? Are there any abstentions? I declare the motion carried.
Madam Mayor, for administrative purposes, I wanted to ask Chief Whip, given there's 11 speakers already registered for the next motion, excluding those who want to speak further, might we want to delay that till the next meeting? Otherwise, we'd have to go past 10 o'clock.
I was just about to ask that.
I'm just asking them.
Can I ask that the 11 people who wish to speak make it short? And I will make the motion short because it's straight to the point.
Yeah? Okay, yeah. If perhaps we can ask for brief contributions. 2 minutes. I'm happy to work on an informal 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So we've agreed, we'll be brief.
We have to. It's their choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll speak for 2 minutes. I think it's straightforward. I doubt we'll have anybody voting against the motion. I beg to move.
Motion 2 is on the subject of digital inclusion. I call on Councillor Evans formally to move the motion, standing in her name, and Councillor Aretti to second.
I move.
I beg to second, Mr.
Councillor Evans, would you like to speak?
This motion was inspired by Samuel Pepys, the 17th century diarist, who was completely obsessed with bodily functions. What happened was I made an online order using my digital skills for a bulk supply of loo paper, which I got at a very good price. However, when it arrived, it looked like this.
Oh, yes, you said that.
So I said to myself, right, I shall use my digital skills and get my money back and make a complaint. So I rooted around on the computer and I was able to make a complaint. I uploaded a photo and got my money back. However, how many people in the borough are not digitally included, but they are excluded? So I thought we would bring this motion because many people cannot participate in modern life. They cannot pay by tapping. They can't attach their credit card to the account. They cannot make a complaint or report an issue to the council online. They are not able to get good prices, and maybe they can't even get a date because they can't do online dating. They are being left out of modern life. So, who are these people? They are people who don't speak English, they are young people, they are immigrants, and they are the elderly. We discussed it. I looked into what the council is doing. We are doing a lot. We had on the 6th of July a digital event for all stakeholders, so they would come to the Morley Center, the Morley College, the business center there, And they came, about 35 organizations, including the NHS, and we coordinated, and Johnny's officers coordinated, a way that it would become a global, universal problem, and we wouldn't have to constantly go to each separate stakeholder. Number two, the digital, they need devices. I'd like us to be committed to giving excess digital advice.
Councillor Evans.
Yes?
Your time's up.
I spoke for 5 minutes? 2 minutes. Oh, my 2 minutes! I'm so sorry. Okay.
You said you'd be brief.
I will be brief, and you all get the point. I don't have to go further.
Thank you.
We
Thank
just
you.
need to commit.
Thank you. Councillor Areshi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, my friend, Councillor Janet, for bringing this motion forward. Glad to hear that some people can order online paper. I don't know what paper it is. But sadly, my dad, who is a PhD in economics, have worked with many governments managing their money, but you can't still go online and, order papers or anything that available online. So you can see these people are excluded. We're extremely lucky to be in the age of digital revolution. I had an opportunity to pick up gadgets and interact naturally, but historically, the pre-digital age, many of our elderly residents and many of the people who belong to under poverty line can't do that. So I think it's extremely important that we support them. And we cannot ignore them, the fact because it could happen to any of us in the future. Aging is a general transition of birth, so it could happen to anyone. And I'm just cut shorting my speech, Madam Mayor. What Council is doing is extremely important, and I request lead member to continue these events and programs and not to cut short them, and that's my request. But before I end up my speech, other than these programs, I think it's extremely important to include things like data sharing elements, teaching them privacy options, and safeguarding their data. One example that I just want to give you, Madam Mayor, is cyber criminals often steal your data, which is online, basically.
May I remind you, your 2 minutes are up.
All right, thank you.
Sorry.
I just want to say, be aware of
Okay.
the cyber criminals. So it's extremely important that we teach those,
Thank you.
data sharing. Thank you.
I will now open the motion up to debate. I call upon councillors who have indicated that they wish to speak. Councillor Hargreaves, Councillor Simmons, Councillor Enlagi, Councillor Waite, Councillor Idris, Councillor Hammond, and Councillor Addenbrook. So if you can start with Councillor Hargreaves, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I didn't wish to speak, so thank you very much.
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you. In 2018, in this chamber, I asked the leadership how Grenfell affected residents were supposed to access vital comms and support information if they do not have internet access. I did not receive an answer on that point. Eventually, in 2019, and after much repetition of my question, the Council finally embarked on a social media campaign, a social media online campaign, publicly acknowledging the fact that not everyone is online and asking residents to use word of mouth, if I recall correctly, to share information from their online channels. I suppose that's one way of going about things. I absolutely support this important motion and the actions called for, with the following caveat. How are the digital inclusion events and availability of recycled devices to be publicised and accessed? And to what extent does the Council's communication strategy currently take account of and mitigate the known fact of digital exclusion, which the Council has publicly acknowledged several years ago? There are two aspects of digital inclusion: how to reduce the number of residents who are digitally excluded, to which this motion chiefly speaks, but also how to mitigate the effects of exclusion and ensure that council comms to resident are inclusive and accessible to all. Digital inclusion is a matter pertaining not only to the council's digital strategy, but also to its comms strategy and how the council communicates with its residents. And so I would also call on the council to make digital inclusion and the public sector equality duty part of the council's communication strategy going forwards. As one resident said to me this week, they know how to get in touch with us when they want the council tax.
Councillor Nlagi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thanks, Janet, for bringing this motion timely into the digital transformation we've seen, whether we like it or not, during COVID, because we've been forced to adopt technology and conduct our business online. However, inclusion, it doesn't mean just a simple use of devices or technology focused. We really need to think of inclusion in a wider sense in terms of organizational change, cultural change, and as my fellow councillor highlighted, is the overall arching philosophy of having the council moving in the right direction where we are in the world we live in. We have our youngster, they have their own digital platform, digital media and environment, whereas adults and elders, we have the aspiration. If I can bring one example here, and you brought one example on dating, I think if my grandfather is alive now, 85, I remember he has a girlfriend, but she left, and I'm sure he will use the dating line to find another one to keep company. The essence of transformation, it should be seen from a leadership perspective, where we are adopting this proposition, as you highlighted, and incorporated into the wider strategy of the council. We are all facing challenges, and Madam Mayor, I won't speak much. I know it's. I would love to explore further this dramatic change, but the lesson learned from COVID, I think, for everybody, whether it's organization and other institutions, to take digital transformation as essential for moving forward in terms of engaging with
Councillor
our residents and having the wider involvement.
We need to wrap it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Wade.
We welcome the motion on digital exclusion, but for the hard-to-reach residents, exclusion is a daily reality. This is important given the increasing level of information, advice, payment that are made online. And the information providers like Age UK, the Council and other organisations heavily rely on digital accessibility. We've also got the potential of the introduction of telecare. So what is being done to ensure that the internet is available and affordable? And this is particularly relates to our independent and sheltered accommodation, as a scheme-wide installation would reduce costs and ensure access for residents. Have funds been set aside to cover these costs? Has this initiative worked with our RSLs and providers to ensure that internet installation are part of their cyclical maintenance programs. It is very important. Fear, scams, but it's also, we know that older people are very good with iPads. They really relate to them. And it's not only the social that they need, but it's the amount of information that is available online which could help them, but the cost is preventing them from accessing it. Thank you.
Councillor Idris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to make it short and sweet. Like your father, my mother also is 87, and she has a PhD in economics from Germany. And she's a whiz with the iPad, and it's really kind of scary to some extent because she's buying stuff. We need to buy her a new house because she's buying a whole lot of stuff. But the great thing about it is during COVID, when we were all isolating, she was not lonely. She was talking to us. She was communicating with my brother in the US. She even started little dinner parties on Zoom with her friends from overseas. And that for me is, I mean, it really is a very essential, I think, to a lot of people of all ages, because I think the biggest problem we have right now in our society is total isolation from people not being able to go out, not being able to meet people, not being able to engage. So I think this motion, thank you very much, Janet and Arian, it's an excellent motion, and I think we should really have our focus and target on those 13,000 that that are not included. They don't have the literacy, so we definitely need to sort that out. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I also strongly support the motion, and I commend the Council for the work they're doing to increase the number of people who are digitally included or who become digitally included. But my angle is slightly different on this. I want to talk about digital exclusion because there are some people who will never be digitally included, however much work the Council does. And and I won't name any residents of this borough, but while Councillor Idris's mother is obviously a whiz, my mother at 90, we're struggling to maintain her existing skills. And it is completely unrealistic to expect her to learn something new, certainly over the last 2 or 3 years. I would also name my friend Sue Kay from St John's Wood, who's in her 60s and medically unable to use computer equipment. And she campaigns tirelessly on the subject of digital exclusion and digital inclusion. So what I'm looking for is an assurance for the lead member that this council will be maintaining a good analogue service for those residents who will never be digitally included rather, because there will always be some of them. And if we're going to be the best council, we do need to remember these people, this cohort, and we need to provide a good service for them going forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Addenbrooke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I will be brief, but I just wanted to highlight a few things that Adult Social Care and Health are doing. We are part of the Borough's Digital Inclusion Partnership, which contributes to the overall programme. Most of our contracts include requirements to provide online training and support for residents. This includes floating support providers, helping people to maintain tenancies and independence by paying bills and managing their income online. Day centres loan devices to attendees and deliver one-to-one and group training for people to develop their digital confidence and skills, including how to stay safe online, which I think we all agree is really, really important. Last week, Elizabeth and I visited OpenAge and heard how empowered members felt after taking part in the digital training, having put it off for many years. Our in-house services for residents with learning disabilities provide a multimedia support and training offer to help them express and meet their personal goals. Commission services provide valuable support to those who feel digitally excluded, and this was particularly important during COVID, where they enabled residents to stay in contact with families and take part in online classes. Going forward, new service specifications will include digital inclusion into the KPIs and service requirements for day services, and providers will have an annual plan of how they will promote digital inclusion within their organisation. So, Madam Mayor, digital inclusion is really important for our residents. However, this does not work for everyone, as Councillor Hammond has pointed out. Several members of our local account group, of which Councillor Hammond's friend is a member of the local account group, are digital exclusion champions and are always challenging us to make sure they are not forgotten. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I now invite Councillor Thalasitis as the lead member to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. The first thing I want to do is thank Janet for bringing this very important motion to the Chamber. I'm very grateful for all of the campaigning work she does on a number of issues, and this is certainly an area in which she's a champion. I'm delighted that everybody is so happy with the digital inclusion work that's happening and that they want us to go further. I'm happy to review how we communicate, as Councillor Simmons had encouraged. I'm happy to give the assurance to Councillor Hammond around an ongoing analogue provision, although I think we should be aiming for better digital transformation in as many services as we can. And I'm very happy to take on board everything that this motion and this debate has thrown up.
I now invite Councillor Evans as the mover of the motion to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for your excellent contributions. We have in existence some really helpful programs and offerings. What we don't have is that very often you have to go online to find out about them. We're missing the link, and I agree with Claire Simmons. She was absolutely right, and that was a key part of my thinking as well. I would suggest that the people who come in to the customer services, that we have someone there who can tell them what's on offer. We have North and South libraries which are giving one-to-one training. In the North, it's on Tuesdays in the morning. In the South, it's at the Brompton Library, and it's at 1 o'clock. And we also need them to be able to have someone at the customer services desk who can give out the information, because these people are going to the customer services because they have no other way to apply. And I think we can have people should be proactive at the civic reception. They should say, did you know we have this on offer? We can have a leaflet there. We can have leaflets going into the buildings just saying what is on offer, the training, the one-on-one, the offer of possible devices or smartphones. And if we work together on this, we can get it moving. But the missing link is the communication. And I would like to have a commitment on that. Thank you.
I now put the motion to the vote. Would those for the motion please show? Would those against the motion please show? Any abstentions? I declare the motion carried. Item 15, I invite Councillor Hargreaves to nominate the appointment listed in his name.
Thank you.
Are there any other appointments? Is the appointment approved? There is no urgent business to bring to the Council's attention. That concludes the business of this evening's meeting of the Council. The next meeting of the Council is the full Council meeting scheduled to be held on 11th of October 2023. Good evening. Have a lovely summer.